After the college entrance exam results were out, even though I scored 200 points more than my twin brother, my parents still thought there's no point in girls studying too much. Right in front of the whole family, they tore up my acceptance letter and files. But I didn't really react. Instead, I smiled and agreed with my mom. And the next day I went out to look for a job. You see, I've been reborn and I know that the apocalypse is right around the corner. College isn't that important right now. Surviving and making sure my younger sister gets through it is what matters most. The whole family was sitting in the living room with the AC on, and the atmosphere was super awkward. My mom, Mary, sighed and said, "Emily, girls don't need to study that much. Look at me, I only graduated middle school and I still married your dad and have you three, and we're happy, aren't we?" My sister Sophia quietly rebutted, "But Emily can go to the best university, and whereas our brother didn't do so well yet he can go, why can't she?" My dad, Thomas, got all riled up. "Go for what? We can't afford college for 2 kids. Plus, how can you compare your sister to your brother? He's a man and women studying too much can't find a husband." As he said this, he grabbed my acceptance letter and files and tore them apart before I could react. "Tomorrow you're going to find a job and help earn tuition fees for your brother. You and your brother are twins. As the elder sister, you should be taking care of him." I just stared at the calendar on the wall, breathing in the fresh air I hadn't in a while. I'm alive. No, to be precise, I've been reborn. In my past life, I took the college entrance exam with my twin brother, John. When the results came out, I scored 200 points higher than him. I got into a top university, while John might not even get into any college at all. But Thomas and Mary refused to let me attend. They didn't want to spend money on me, and they couldn't stand the idea of me surpassing John. I was devastated when I saw them tear up my files and acceptance letter. I cried so hard I nearly fainted, trembling all over. John laughed so much at my reaction, he filmed it and posted online, asking what to do with a crazy sister. I lost my chance to study and my life hit rock bottom. This time I didn't react the same way. Instead, I nodded seriously. "Mom, Dad, you're right. It's so hot out, the bubble tea shops are super busy. I can work and earn for my brother's tuition." The 3 of them didn't expect me to be so agreeable. They were ready with a whole bunch of words and criticisms for me. But they suddenly had nothing to argue about, and just nodded blankly. I followed through, packing up all my study notes and materials and gave them to John, sincerely saying, "Go for it, brother. You're the family's hope." That night, Sophia and I lay on our beds. Without AC, it's always too hot to sleep. Sophia gently asked me, not wanting to wake the others, "Sis, why are you doing this? You should be the one going to college, not him, and it's not like we can't afford it. It's too unfair how much they favor boys. You should fight back." Had it been my past life, I would have said the same. But not this time. Not only because my rebellion led to insults and beatings, but also because the temperature is only going to soar. Many areas will hit 90 degrees. Surface temperature over 100, too hot for crops and humans to survive. When this heat wave hits, we can't go outside in the day, it feels like a giant oven. We can only go out at night to scavenge for food. But with 5 mouths to feed, it's never enough. Especially after Sophia fell ill from eating spoiled food. Under Thomas and Mary's urging, I had to take Sophia out of the house for her safety, leaving her in an empty place. But it turned out the AC there didn't work, and when I brought her medicine one night, she had died from the heat and sickness. Not even 2 months later, Thomas kicked me out too and I died outside. Looking at Sophia, my heart ached. In my past life, I failed her. Now, given a second chance, I need to protect her. I stroked her hair, wanting to tell her about my rebirth, but I feared she wouldn't understand or might accidentally leak the secret. So I whispered, "Sophia, school isn't the only way. When I earn enough, I'll save up for your education." Sophia gave me a puzzled look but just nodded. I couldn't help but ask, "Sophia, if I ever hurt you, would you forgive me?" Her expression was even more puzzled, but she replied, "Of course, you're my sister." In the morning, before the sun came up, I headed out. I wasn't going to work, though. I needed to prep for the apocalypse, which is only about 2 months away. I've read my share of end-of-world novels, but none ever tell you how to stock up with zero cash. And I don't have any magical cheats or pocket dimensions. My pockets were empty, not a penny to my name. How do I deal with this? After thinking it through, I decided on online loans. They might be a hassle, but I don't have better options. I applied for every online loan I could find, though because I'm young and have no income or assets, it wasn't much. Still, there were enough platforms that I managed to borrow over 800,000 yuan. I even took some gold jewelry Mary hid at home, barely scraping together 1,000,000 yuan. With this money, the first thing I did was rent an abandoned bunker out in the countryside. This bunker is cool in summer and warm in winter. In my past life, many people survived in it after the disaster struck. This bomb shelter seems perfect for us. It has a massive iron door that weighs several hundred pounds. There's a lock on it, but it's not super useful. Just by turning an inside lock, not even a crowd outside could break it open. What's even better is that there's underground water inside. Someone had set up a water pump here before, and I tried it out. It still works. The agent looked a bit puzzled at me renting this place out here in the middle of nowhere. What are you doing renting a bomb shelter? I had my excuse ready. I wanted to start an immersive adventure escape room or something. After pleading and being persistent, I paid a month's rent. The agent had initially insisted on a deposit, but since this place was hard to rent out anyway, they reluctantly agreed. Once I secured the space, I started shopping. The bomb shelter's pretty roomy. Judging by the temperature, it seems about 20 degrees cooler in there compared to outside. I wasn't sure if that would change when things got really hot. I thought about buying air conditioners but decided against it. It's risky to have units outside. Someone could easily ruin them, making us suffer in the heat. Instead, I got a bunch of large freezers and fans. We'll use them to freeze ice and stock up on ice cream for Sophia. With ice blocks and fans around, it shouldn't be too bad. If it gets unbearable, we could just open the fridge doors for a cool blast. But that means we'll need power. Even though there weren't blackouts last time, I still picked up a few generators as a backup. Since it's just Sophia and me, I also got some cameras to monitor the area outside the door and on both sides to ensure it's safe. Next up was food supplies. Because it's not feasible to cook inside, I got loads of instant noodles and cookies. Wanting Sophia to eat well, I also bought some self-heating rice and hot pots, even though it cost a bit more. As I looked at all the fridge space, I decided to get frozen dumplings, buns, and wontons to avoid using a stove. I picked 2 powerful microwaves which can also cook noodles and heat things up. Luckily, many approaching expiration foods are cheap online. From past experience, I know eating these won't really matter. I also got Sophia's favorite snacks, candies, and ice cream. With the scorching sun looming, I bought some vitamins to keep us nourished. Being girls, I made sure to get enough tampons and tissues. Last time Sophia had some health issues, so I bought a few basic medications, though not a lot. I rarely fell sick before, so it didn't seem worth splurging on. I had everything shipped directly to the bomb shelter. Even if someone knew supplies were there, they can't get in. After all the shopping, I wasn't left with much cash. Still, I managed to get 2 stun batons, a bunch of books, and lots of movies and TV shows to keep us entertained because long isolation can drive people nuts. Every day I was either moving supplies, arranging things, or cleaning, busy from dawn till midnight. Besides Sophia, no one paid much attention to me, especially Mary. After realizing I wasn't home for dinner, she stopped cooking for me altogether. When I got back, only Sophia was waiting for me. She'd saved some of the evening's food for me, sharing with a smile on her sweaty face. In my mind, I silently counted down the days. Soon the day before the extreme heat arrived. I waited till Thomas and the others were fast asleep, then took Sophia with me and left home. I thought I'd need to explain a lot to Sophia, but she just picked up her doll and followed me without question. After a long walk, we finally reached the shelter. Once inside, I locked the door. It was much cooler inside compared to outside, even without air conditioning. Sophia sat on the bed in the spotless shelter and said, "Sis, when you mentioned not wanting to go to school, I found it odd. I figured you hadn't been going to work either. Something was up. Now, can you tell me?" I nodded and told her everything about my rebirth. Sophia was calmer than I expected. She just ate her ice cream and asked, "Sis, why didn't we bring Mom and Dad?" I hesitated, then chose to skip over the part where our parents kicked her out and said how they basically threw us out to fend for ourselves. Her eyes welled up with disbelief. How could they do that to us? We're their kids. I didn't know what to say back. I just told her to wash up and get some sleep. The next day I checked my phone. The weather forecast was the hottest topic, literally. The temperature was hitting 140 Fahrenheit, hot enough to fry eggs on the pavement. Due to such extreme conditions, officials couldn't offer much explanation and just advised people to stay indoors during the day. Mary and Thomas called me a few times. I didn't pick up and they stopped trying. They probably thought Sophia and I wouldn't survive outside. As days passed, the heat intensified. Besides some sporadic night activity, no one ventured out during the day. The shelter turned out as I guessed. It was cool in summer and warm in winter. At night, we didn't even need ice, just a fan was enough. During this time, Sophia was eating well, sleeping well, and seemed so much healthier and more energetic. Occasionally, someone would try to intrude, looking to take refuge. Even the agent tried once. But I wasn't worried at all. There was no way anyone was getting in. Over time, no one else showed up. She was eating the self-heating hot pot I had prepared for her and said happily, "Sis, this place is great, safe and cool." I nodded along. Yeah, as long as we lock the door from the inside, no one can open it from the outside. Sophia looked a bit regretful and said, "I wonder how Mom and Dad are doing." Them? They're doing just fine. Half a year passed like this. Somehow, Thomas and Mary appeared outside the bunker. They looked really worn out, like they'd been struggling for a while. They started by softly calling us at the door. And when there was no response, they tried pushing the door open. I then spoke into the camera, "Don't bother trying. This door weighs several hundred pounds. You can't push it open." Only then did they notice the camera above. Thomas faced the camera with no sign of pleading, just anger. "You little brat, you're here enjoying yourself while ignoring your parents and brother?" Mary was more gentle. "Emily, Sophia, let your parents in for a bit. We've almost starved these days. Your brother is sick too. If not, at least give us some food to take back." In the past life, Sophia and I would go out to find food for them. This time, I guess they'd have to manage on their own. I looked at the two on the monitor and asked Sophia, "Sophia, did you tell them where we are?" She quickly shook her head. "No, I haven't been in touch with them. I don't even have a phone." She glanced worriedly at our storage. "Sis, should we let them in? But we don't have much food ourselves. If they come in, it'll go fast." I shook my head. Sophia hadn't been through what I had and didn't understand. If we let Thomas and Mary in, they'd kick us out to die. "Sophia, you have to trust your sister. Last time they did it." Sophia seemed uneasy watching the pair, tears in her eyes as she left the monitor room, clutching her doll. For some reason, Thomas and Mary, after checking their phones for a while, decided not to leave. They faced the camera, being sarcastic and abusive. "I carried you for 10 months and you treat me like this? Heartless child. After raising you all these years, even if we didn't send you to school, you shouldn't treat us this way. Let us in, and once the heat wave passes, we'll let you return to school." But their words fell on deaf ears. I was numb to it. Growing up, I prayed for things countless times but never got their sympathy. As the sun rose, they felt the heat and huddled together in a corner, their tone finally changing. Mary cried, "Emily, please let us in until nightfall. We promised to leave by then. Trust us one more time." Thomas agreed, yes, just until sundown." These words felt so familiar. I remember begging Thomas the same way. A memory I couldn't forget. I sighed, feeling unable to witness this situation any longer, and chose to turn off the monitor. I needed sleep after a long night. When I woke up, Sophia had opened the door. Startled, I rushed over to find Thomas, and Mary hadn't left and had died at the doorway. Sophia was a mess of tears, sobbing uncontrollably. "Sis, they're dead. Even if they wronged you before, you should forgive them. I want to bury them, not leave them like this." I sighed, taking the shovel from her. "Go inside, watch the monitor. If someone comes, call me." Sophia nodded, and I began dragging Mary's water-deprived body. It was lighter than expected. But as I moved away, there was a sudden clang. Sophia, with a cold expression, slowly closed the big door, smirking, "You can die too." I sprinted, trying to get back into the bunker, but it was too late. The door was shut and locked before me. Although the sun wasn't out, it was unbearably hot, and within minutes I was drenched in sweat. I couldn't understand why Sophia would do this. Looking at the camera, I knew she could see me. "Sophia, I know you think I'm ruthless and can't stand what happened to them, but I've come back from the future. I'm sure of the consequences of letting them in. Open the door first. I'll explain inside, okay?" After a long silence, Sophia's laughter echoed from above. "Oh, my dear sister, of course, I know you came back from the future. If you hadn't, I'd have killed you already." I was baffled. What was she talking about? I looked up at the camera in confusion. Sophia's laughter continued. "You've been given a second chance and you're still so dumb? Are you a pig? Have you no brains? Can't you see I've been putting up with you, secretly mocking you all this time? A realization hit me like a ton of bricks. Was Sophia reborn too? Seeing my expression, Sophia knew what I was thinking. She clapped her hand, so you can figure out that I came back too. Maybe you're not so dense after all. I wiped the bangs sticking to my forehead and said, Sophia, in my past life, I shouldn't have listened to Mom and Dad. I definitely shouldn't have left you in another house to die just so I could stay home. At the time, I didn't know the AC in that house was broken. When I went to deliver the medicine at night, I found out you'd passed away. I felt so guilty and regretful, which is why I wanted to make it up to you in this life. Sophia listened and seemed to find it funny. Guilty? And what's the point of feeling guilty? Even Mom and Dad said they were sorry today. You should have seen them bowing to the camera after you fell asleep. It was hilarious. I was caught off guard by Sophia's rebirth. I was still figuring out how to explain myself to Sophia, but she kept on talking like a switch had been flipped. I was reborn a couple of days before you, but what could I do? I'm only 14. I don't have money or any way to get it. I was stuck thinking of what to do. I even considered burning all of you to avenge my last life's hot death. But then, when Dad tore up your file and you didn't even react, I started suspecting that you might be reborn too. I nudged for answers multiple times, but you didn't say anything. So, I followed you outside once and saw you weren't going to work. I snooped on your phone while you were asleep and saw you'd gotten a lot of money. So I let you live, figuring at least you'd prepare disaster supplies first. That's when it hit me. Everything's been too easy. No matter what I said, Sophia trusted me unconditionally. She didn't react much to the fact that I was reborn. And the last time she asked how she had died before, her shock wasn't about the death but about my lying. I couldn't help but laugh and cry. I did wrong in the last life, but even if I didn't bring her out of the house, would Thomas and Mary have really spared her? But it doesn't matter now. She can watch the surveillance today and definitely keep an eye on till I'm dead. I spoke one last time, Sophia. If you open the door now, I can pretend none of this happened. If you don't, then our sisterhood ends today. Sophia gave a cold laugh. Good sister, I'm out of options too. With food running low, if I'm your dear little sis, go die for me and make up for my life lost last time. Instead of arguing with me, think about yourself. Sunrise is around the corner. I looked at my phone and sure enough, it would be morning soon and I couldn't waste any more time. The car Thomas and Mary drove was still parked not too far away. I found the keys on Thomas, took them and headed for the car. I couldn't help but glance at the direction of the bunker. I knew Sophia was with the monitors watching me. If she opened the door, I'd still forgive her. But I stood there for a few minutes, realizing she wouldn't open it. So I drove off, wiping tears that wouldn't stop. Though I knew crying when it's so hot only makes you more dehydrated, I'd always been good to Sophia, and regretted what happened in our last life. I thought being reborn was a chance from above to make it right. Who knew I wiped my tears? There were things I hadn't told Sophia, not because I couldn't trust her but because I didn't want her to be scared. In the last life, though Thomas and Mary threw me out, leading to my death, unlike Sophia, I didn't die from the heat. I drowned. The intense heat from the last life only lasted half a year. Then temperatures dropped and it started raining, flooding lots of places for a whole year. Thomas forced me to fish for John, but I was just an okay swimmer. Plus, the water was full of floating bodies and cars and furniture. I got hurt and drowned quickly. That's why, even with $1 million, my stockpile is just instant noodles and snacks. I'd rented a high-rise with most supplies stashed there. I planned to cover up Thomas and Mary for Sophia before telling her what's next, but she didn't give me the chance. She only noted the dwindling supplies without realizing that if I was reborn, I'd definitely secure resources. The bunker where Sophia is staying is the lowest point. The iron door is solid but not sealed. A downpour will flood it first thing. Bodies were everywhere on the road, with stragglers wandering like zombies, hoping for food. Luckily, I was driving. Reaching the high-rise on foot would be tough. After 2 or 3 hours of driving, I reached the other rented place before the sun came up. The lock was still intact, so I used my fingerprint to unlock it. I quickly relocked the door and used a door stopper I'd pre-bought to block it, fearing someone might have seen me and would come to loot. Inside was sweltering, as this was my shelter against cold and rain, without any cooling systems. And this heat will last 2 more days at least. I shut all the windows and drew the curtains. But that wasn't enough. The place felt like a sauna. If this goes on, the heat will get me before the rain and cold have the chance. I quickly opened a few freezers where I stored food. Looking at the ice cream inside, I felt pretty bummed. These were originally meant for Sophia. She loves ice cream, be it cold or hot weather. I always joke that she must have some kind of innate Korean cold tolerance. Crazy to think all this stuff I saved for Sophia ended up saving my life. I lay on top of the freezer, got some blankets and emergency blankets, and wrapped them around to keep the heat out. Made it cooler around me. Finally, I felt some relief. If I wasn't dressed so warmly, I might have even felt cold. I started snacking on the ice cream, thinking about the past 6 months, and I couldn't help but cry a bit. I thought since it was hot, eating less wouldn't be a huge deal as long as I kept up with some salt intake. So, the supplies I stored were basic, just enough to get by. The tasty stuff like instant rice and dumplings, those were for Sophia. I just survived on salt water, instant noodles, and cookies. At least I had vitamins so I wouldn't get sick or anything. And Sophia, she wasn't shy about eating well. Even though she'd be polite at first, over the past 6 months she grew all healthy and chubby. You wouldn't guess it was the end times. Meanwhile, I looked like a skinny monkey. Worse than I ever did before. That I prepared better food supplies here because I thought when the cold weather hits we'd need better nutrition. I dozed off on the freezer. Suddenly, a loud bang woke me up. My whole body ached as I climbed off the freezer. I moved quickly to the window. It was raining just like I expected, but it was still super hot outside. The buildings that had been baking for so long were making sizzling noises, like water droplets on a hot grill. The streets were empty. No one dared to go out, you'd literally get cooked. After about half an hour, the temperature dropped rapidly like everything was flash frozen. I found some winter clothes to put on and finally felt warm. I closed the window and did a stock check. I had enough supplies for me and Sophia for 2 meals a day for over a year. But now, without Sophia, I could eat 3 meals a day, maybe even have midnight snacks. I grabbed a few egg yolk pies I used to love and gobbled down 5 of them. I never even dared to think about that before. They were all saved for Sophia. I genuinely wanted to make it up to her, wanted her to have it good. Once I was full, I realized there was no water in the house. I hadn't stocked up on any, thinking it would just evaporate in this heat. I opened the window again to collect rainwater, and noticed within an hour, water had already accumulated outside. Cars parked by the road were submerged. I spotted a few people on the street, but they all seemed to be heading home. I ran the rainwater through a purifier and boiled it before drinking. With water and food taken care of, I sat on the couch spacing out when my phone suddenly rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I picked up without hesitation. I didn't care who it could be. I just wanted someone to talk to. To my surprise, it was Sophia on the other end. How did she have a phone? Sophia wasn't her usual overconfident self. She was crying hard. "Sis, where are you? Please come save me. The water is almost up to my waist. What do I do?" Was the water rising that slowly? I thought for sure she'd be gone by now, but she was still alive. That I coldly replied, "You can open the door yourself. I can't help you right now." Sophia sobbed even harder. "I don't know why the door won't open. Didn't you say you felt guilty about me? If you come save me, I'll forgive you for killing me in the past life." Anger rose inside me. "Sophia, I meant to bring this up last time. How could you say I killed you? You know Thomas and Mary thought you were sick and wanted you out. I had no choice but to put you in an empty room." "Sis, stop," Sophia interrupted, still crying. "I know now I misunderstood. Please come save me, I don't want to die. I'm only 14." That I shook my head, knowing she couldn't see me. "Sophia, whether it was me or someone else who might have killed you in the past life, I saved you once this time. You kicked me out, our grudge is settled. I won't save someone who betrayed me. Especially now, the rain's too heavy for me to help you." Sophia's tone changed. She seemed to realize there was no way I could save her. She started to insult me. "In this life and the last, you're the person I hate most. Mom and Dad gave your brother 99% of their love, and you got the other 1%. I got nothing. And you're the pretty, smart one with good grades, making me look like some useless, ugly duckling." I never knew her resentment towards me ran that deep. She carried on and then abruptly stopped. "Wait, how are you still alive? I thought for sure no one would answer if I called." I sighed. "I didn't tell you everything before. I actually knew there would be a heavy rain and the temperature would drop. I didn't want you to lose hope for life, but I didn't expect you to kick me out. I'm safe on a high floor now. Sophia's voice was twisted. You did it on purpose. You wanted me dead. You deliberately kept things from me. Suddenly, I thought about Thomas and Mary. If I didn't ask now, I'd probably never know. So, I voiced my suspicion. Did you invite Thomas and Mary to the shelter? Sophia didn't hesitate. Yes. Food was running low, so I called them while you were asleep. I promised them that if they came, I'd find a way to get you out and let them in. They were about to leave, but I secretly contacted them with the phone hidden in my doll, telling them not to go, that you'd change your mind. Maybe the water was rising, and Sophia started speaking faster. You're always so lucky. In the last life, I begged our parents to kick you out, but they couldn't bear it. They thought you could bring back food and were more useful than me, and they chose to throw me out instead. But thankfully, they forced you to death too. Do you know how happy I was to hear that? Sophia's words chilled me. I never thought she was that kind of person. She kept on talking non-stop, trying to unload everything from this life and the last. She accused me of stealing parental love, called me hypocritical. Until she hung up, she was almost entirely insulting me. I walked to the window. The water outside had already reached the first floor. Sophia probably didn't hang up. Her phone probably got waterlogged and shut off. I knew the rain was only going to get worse, reaching almost the 10th floor. The building I was in had over 30 floors, and my apartment was on the 20th. It was quite safe. I didn't resent her for kicking me out of the shelter. She had her reasons, a life for a life. But not holding a grudge didn't mean I'd save her again. In the past life, I lived for my family till I died. In this life, I just wanted to live for myself. With plenty of food, I ate 3 to 4 meals a day, studied college-level material, and started exercising. Things I never dared to imagine before. In the shelter, hunger often left me dizzy, and food was hard to come by, let alone engaging in calorie-burning activities. My routine improved my height and physique, leaving me healthier and smarter. Life in this apocalyptic world didn't seem that unbearable. A year later, the rain finally let up, and it took the floodwaters over a month to recede fully. The climate returned to normal. For the first time in so long, I stepped out of my room. First, I checked out the shelter where Sophia was. Sadly, it was still submerged due to its low location. Returning to my place, I found a corpse. From the clothes, it looked like John. Thomas and Mary once said John was sick. He probably died from the heat and illness. I dragged John's lightweight body out of the room, as did many others, removing corpses and useless items. Except for me, almost everyone was crying. Some celebrated their survival. Others mourned their lost family and friends. I stood there, lost for a bit, unsure where to go or what to do, until someone called out to me. We're planning to see if there are any other survivors nearby. Want to join? I nodded, sure. The inn.